A lie repeated often enough becomes accepted as truth. Similarly, if we continually hear and say something that is completely ridiculous and senseless, we don't question it. We just assume that it somehow makes sense. But today, let us take a step back and look our precious language in the mirror. Here's a list of common English idioms that actually make no sense whatsoever. Note that if you trace back a lot of these idioms to their roots, you can actually reverse engineer some sense into them. However, since we say these things without thinking about or often even knowing their origins, for the sake of this undertaking, we will not be going into the origins in order to justify these idioms. Actually, I'll look at the origins of many idioms in a separate video. This video is about idioms as they are today, that are complete madness. Since 10 seems to be the magic number of lists, we'll look at 10 idioms today. I'll gladly make a sequel to this video if your appetite remains unsatisfied. Number 1. Head over heels. Loving someone is stage 1. Falling in love with them is stage 2. But if you're head over heels in love, then you, my friend, have reached the ultimate level. But my concern is, isn't your head always above your heels anyway? So what's the point of this saying? If you want to talk about someone who has fallen in love, even to the point of tripping over themselves, then the saying should be heels over head. That depicts a very dramatic and hilarious fall, something that I can associate with falling in love. Number 2. Take it with a grain of salt. If someone is known to exaggerate or lie, then you might want to take whatever they say with a grain of salt. Meaning, you shouldn't easily believe them 100%. But how does salt get involved with all of this? Is the salt that I will add the flavoring of truth to make the lies more palatable? Number 3. Every now and again. This one breaks the laws of physics and shatters the fabric of space-time. If something happens occasionally, then it happens every now and again. Or every now and then. But think about how absurd that is. First of all, if something is happening every now, then it's constantly happening, because it is always now. So it means it is never not happening. But not only does it never not happen, but it also happens even more than always. It happens every now, but then it also happens again. How does this even compute? Is each again that it happens tied to each now that it happens? That might mean not only that it is constantly happening in this reality, but there may also be a parallel universe in which it is also always happening. So if I give myself a paper cut every now and again, am I in an infinite loop of eternal pain? But that's not all, because that eternity must also occur again. Let's go to number 4. You can't have your cake and eat it. You see, this is a classic example of something that sounds right until you say it slowly. Why would I acquire a piece of cake if after finally having it, I can't eat it? In fact, this also means that I can't eat any cake at all, because for me to eat it, I must first have it. It must first be in my possession. And as we all know, we can't have our cake and eat it. So that's a real problem. Because I like cake. If we want to make this idiom work, we should say, you can't eat your cake and have it. Because after you've eaten it, it's gone. You can no longer have it. That makes sense. Number 5. It's darkest just before dawn. While the intent of this is something I can get behind, its delivery needs some work. This phrase means that just when things seem to be at their worst, that is when an opportunity or miracle will happen. However, the problem is, just before dawn is practically the brightest part of the night. Midnight is the darkest, and it gets brighter and brighter until dawn and then sunrise, barring fluctuations in visible moonlight. Number 6. Shoot for the moon. If you miss, you will land among the stars. The intent is clear on this one, but if you think about it, the idiom means the opposite of what it intends to mean. This saying means aim very high, so even if you miss your target, your result will still be good. The problem is, if you aim for the moon and fall short of that, you will not be landing among any stars. That is because the stars are much farther away from us than the moon is. The saying should be aim for the stars, and if you miss, you will land on the moon. Number 7. Nothing to sneeze at. If something is nothing to sneeze at, then it's something you shouldn't ignore. In other words, even though it might seem otherwise, it's not insignificant. The problem is, we don't sneeze at things that we think are unimportant to begin with. In fact, sneezing, at least for me, is completely involuntary. So I can't understand why this idiom is still being used. It makes absolutely no sense. Number 8, a different kettle of fish. Clearly, this one was pre the emergence of animal rights activists. If two things are very unalike, then they're two different kettles of fish. So if you thought high school was difficult, wait until you go to college. College is a different kettle of fish. What I'm wondering is why we have fish in kettles in the first place. Fish isn't cooked that way. And if there's such a thing as fish tea, and being Jamaican, I know there is, I'm sure that's not how it works. Number 9, donkey's years. If you have been doing something for a long time, then you have been doing it for donkey's years. I actually thought this was a strictly Jamaican idiom, but it seems to be an uncontained virus. This makes no sense at all, because donkeys live for about 25 to 30 years. There are so many animals that live much longer than that, such as the Arctic whale that can live for over 200 years. So as for why we chose a donkey to epitomize longevity and long-lastingness is beyond the scope of my imagination. Number 10, dead as a doornail. If you haven't watered your plants in weeks, they're probably dead as a doornail. I get that a doornail is not alive, but the thing is, neither is any other kind of nail, or a door, or a rock, or a chair. You get the picture. A doornail is so arbitrary. In fact, since doors are opened and closed, doornails are more alive than many other kinds of nails, since they are forced to move. There are many more idioms that we use every day that are either outdated or simply nonsensical. If you can think of any that I haven't mentioned, write it in the comments and I'll shout you out in the next video. Until next time, thanks for watching.